Ready? Okay. I'll call the special meeting of Glendale City Council for February 7th to order. Roll call, please.
Council members Garpetian.
Here.
Najarian.
Here.
Sinanian.
Here.
Mayor Devine.
Here. What's next?
And Mayor, the agenda for the February 7th, 2017 special public meeting of the City Council was posted on Friday, February 3rd, 2017 on the bulletin board outside City Hall. First item is General Manager of Glendale Water and Power regarding alternative project delivery method for the proposed Grayson repowering project. 1A is a resolution authorizing City Manager or his designee to use the engineer procure construct EPC alternative project delivery method and authorizing issuance of a request for qualifications and a request for proposals for prospective EPC contractors. 2 is General Manager of Glendale Water and Power regarding approval of project labor agreements for the proposed Grayson Power Plant repowering project. 2A is a resolution approving the use of project labor agreements.
Thank you. Mr. Ochoa?
Madam Mayor, can I ask a quick question? So why is this item in the afternoon session? Why is this not being brought to us in the evening?
Primarily because we're expecting to have quite a few items in the evening session. The discussion on ADUs is probably going to drag out quite a little bit, considering that both of these items, as Mr. Zern is about to explain, are rather methodical to the extent that these are akin to putting chess pieces out on the board in anticipation of a consideration of a decision by this council next year pertaining to, at the end of this year and spring of next year pertaining to the ultimate decision on Grayson, the financing and then the commitment to repower. These are truly what we would consider more mundane decisions.
And the reason I ask is because the amounts of funding that's associated with these items, and I know this is just the RFQ right now, but ultimately down the line, potentially, the amount, the money involved is so large that I think a lot of residents would want this to be discussed in the evening time when more people have the ability to listen to these meetings. So I don't know, I'm just a little apprehensive about discussing something of this magnitude in the afternoon.
And I can just assure you, when those items do come, when there's those critical decisions to be made, they'll be in the evening. I think Mr. Ochoa would concur with me. But.
Yes, most definitely.
And right now, these are simply, as Mr. Ochoa said, chess pieces that we're putting in place. No money is involved.
Absolutely no money at all. Correct.
Involved.
The project labor agreement, if you approve it, it's done. It gets set aside, and it's all contingent upon whether we move forward. If we don't, the union's well aware. The agreement gets shredded, and we don't do business. The other issue on the RFQ is simply asking for resumes for the companies that are interested. It isn't even giving us a cost. It's just saying, give us your qualifications, and we'll see if you're able to even accomplish this. So
I think maybe what Mr. Councilmember Sinanian is referring to is the fact that it gives a perception that the decision has already been made, and it indeed has not.
That is absolutely correct.
And so this is more or less a preliminary step towards that final decision. But this does not lock us into anything or cost us anything.
No, ma'am. And in fact, it just, there is that critical point when we will come back to you for that decision. But in order to give you the most information, in order to make an informed decision, we have to do some of this preliminary work. But these two.
And I recognize that. I'm saying we do all that in the evening.
I understand.
When it looks more, appearances are everything. So it looks more transparent, looks more open to the general public. But I mean, it is what it is. It's on the agenda now, and if there was money involved, I would not participate in the meeting. But I guess at this point there isn't. But we should try to keep things associated with Grayson of that magnitude to the evening sessions. Give no reason for anyone in our city to somehow think that either our minds have been made up or that anything is going to be approved behind their backs.
Understood.
One thing I want to mention, we are basically making a decision on having the PLA implemented when we award a contract to a bidder out there.
Correct. If you were to award a contract, then the contractor would be obligated and bound by this
That decision
PLA.
is being made today.
The decision to accept the PLA, which would then be placed upon the contractor if you so decide to hire a contractor.
So in that regards, I want to bring this issue up that I spoke about before, is when the general contractor that bids on this project goes out to hire subcontractors, I mentioned this once before, and I want to agendize it at some point and to talk about it as well, but since this is in front of us, they have this, on the same token that they want the contractor to go hire from the labor pool, I think we need to impose on this contract that they hire maybe 20% or 25% locally from the local contractors that are insured, bonded, qualified, and are union, and they are Glendale-based contractors. So that option has to be part of this this agreement as well.
So let me see, Madam Mayor, Councilmember Garapetian. This agreement is set forth with the contractor. Once we sign the agreement with the contractor, then the contractor, all the subcontractors that he proposes have to abide by this contract, which essentially is you get 4 core employees and the rest you have to go to the union hall, and that's what we're agreeing to. You go to the union hall to hire them. The preference is to locals. So if we go to the hall and say we need 5 sheet metal workers, and we say 10 guys stand up, or 10 people, man or woman, and we say, is anybody from Glendale? They say 3 people raise their hand. Those 3 people get hired first. So that's for this. What you're saying about regulating the subcontractors, I personally think, and I would defer to Mr. Garcia, that would be something that would be or could be a condition of the contract, but it's not a condition now. I'm just telling you that.
I want to make sure it's a condition when we sign that contract.
If I may, that particular request that you made is in our shop and working with the line departments on it, and we do intend to bring that particular as a sort of a global issue to the council for discussion. There are restrictions on what we can do legally to mandate local hiring. We have some flexibility, but it's not. We can't just set a number. But when we do that, we'll bring that back, and then that can be implemented if the council so chooses on this contract and on other contracts.
So it could be implemented later as well on this contract.
Correct.
Okay.
If the council decides to do it.
If we were to do, depending on the analysis that comes back on that particular issue, as we move forward with an RFP and RFQ process, if it's called out specifically based on what the law would allow, you would be able to have that discussion at this point in time. What we're asking you today is to allow us to move forward with a contracting method that is not your traditional design, bid, build. And what we're asking for is what amounts to an alternative delivery system that really befits a project of this magnitude, size, and scope, where design, bid, build probably isn't the best approach for us to go forward. And hence the discussion about no dollars being part of this discussion. The PLA is much more, as Steve's indicated, much more focused on it's a project labor agreement, on the labor, not necessarily the contracting. So I think two very different things in terms of those electricians that are going to come work, as opposed to the companies that those electricians may or may not work for. Very different dynamics at play. But we do have the council's direction, I think, from the December 6th or December 8th agenda. That item was put on asked to be agendized by council. That will be coming back to you. But there's a level of review that needs to go into that. But that's not necessarily what we're talking about here today.
And may I add, even with the RFQ, we're actually looking at the prime contractor to give us a reference or a resume, so it wouldn't impact that at this point. It would be something that would be in the RFP if we were to go forward. And I imagine by then we will have resolved the issue one way or the other. And just for your interest, just to go over what an EPC contract, and maybe more appropriately an EPCC, as Mr. Ochoa indicated, it's an alternative method. It's very, very much the method of choice in the energy industry, whether it's oil, gas, or electric. It's often called a turnkey. We do all of the preliminary environmental work and essentially set the parameter, the very broad parameter, and Mr. Abueg has described it to me as setting the frame. And then we ask you to fill it in. So you design it in detail, you procure the necessary equipment, you provide the labor, you build it, and you commission it. And by turnkey, it's like a car. We order a car, and we expect you to deliver that car for the price you quoted and the time frame that you gave us. So it's very much, as Mr. Ochoa indicated, even beyond a design build. But again, very common in this type of business. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Are there any questions from council?
Well, I just want to state that, voting on this, I think, is a good thing. If and when we decide to go forward with the repowering, I think it helps to develop the labor pool and helps bring in apprentices throughout the program. It's something that's routinely done, as Mr. Zern said, not just in power plant repowering, but in also some of the larger infrastructure projects throughout the country. So that being said, I'm in no way committing myself to the repowering of Grayson. That's a discussion we're going to have in the evening at the appropriate time when we decide how we're going to move forward. And there's a lot of pieces that are out there still coming into play, legal, financial, and otherwise. So
Absolutely.
Just want that to be said.
Any other comments? Okay.
So I'll second.
Do
I'm
I
not
have
sure.
I move
You move 1A and 2A?
1A and 2A.
Have a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Council members Garpetian,
Yes.
Najarian,
Yes.
Sinanian,
Yes.
Mayor Devine.
Yes, and let's make sure that if we have any other agenda items on Grayson, that we try to bring them back in the evening. Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Thank
you.
Thank you. Next item? Adjourn?
Next item is just a motion to adjourn.
Okay, do I have a motion to
Move to
adjourn?
adjourn. Second.
We are adjourned.